webinar on Design Nature Trace 2020. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our eminent speaker of the day, Dr. D. Narasimha Reddy. Dr. D. Narasimha Reddy did his PhD in political science. He has worked on different projects which include education and action research related to environmental problems. He has been working on agricultural issues. Mr. Reddy is also associated with policy initiatives related to promotion of organic farming in India. Sir has been a passionate campaigner on environmental and development issues. He was a board member of the International Federation of Organic Agriculture Movements Asia, member of Cotton Advisory Board Committee and Advisory Council of Textile Exchange. Sir has established a center on handloom sector, providing information and doing policy advocacy, dealing essentially with issues related to handloom sector in India. He has participated in several workshops and seminars and in India and on abroad on trade, agriculture, and textile subjects. He is an author and has written on different subjects in regional, national, and international publications. He has also authored environmental education material for universities and colleges and also co-authored a book on environmental education. Dr. Reddy has also participated in several workshops and seminars in India and abroad. He also guides students on their PhD and other research activities. Today, Sir will be presenting on the topic Access to Water through Conservation, Construction and Urban Planning. We're looking forward. We request Dr. Narasimha Reddy to address the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
It's all on us. Thank you, sir. Thank you
you
for
go
accepting it.
When you go to next slide. Yeah, I think most of you are architecture students and you are familiar with how architecture can help or does not help uh, access to water. I mean, theoretically, I don't know if you have learned about it. But let us just look at Hyderabad. If you look at the history of Hyderabad, Hyderabad's water resources are shifting. Long back, almost 50, 60 years back, water for Hyderabad was coming from Hussain Sagar, drinking water. So Miralam tank was also another big tank. So water was available from walking distance of your home. 100 years back, 150 years back, people used to walk to the nearest tank and get water for all their purposes. And these sources continue to be a source of water, not for drinking, but for other purposes until even 1970s, 1980s as well. And they also serve the purpose of groundwater replenishment. Now, I think you might know 100 years back, Himayat Sagar and Usman Sagar were built on River Musi because there were floods in 1908 in Hyderabad for the first time. And to avoid floods, Mokshagundam Vishwesvaraya planned these two tanks, so which diverted excess water during rainy season to these two tanks, and they served as drinking water sources for Hyderabad. So from walking distance, we went to about 20 kilometers from Hyderabad. Now in 1987, around that time, there was severe drought at that time. and then city needs were also increasing. So the first time government started pumping groundwater for household purposes from the public tap. So we used to have public tap. I don't know if many of you know, on the roadside, on the streets, there used to be a public tap, and anyone could open the tap and they can drink or use that water. Singur, which is a dam constructed in Medak district, about 100 kilometers from here towards west side, that became another source. Now, even that was not enough, so we went to east again. So now it is Nagarjun Sagar, 140 kilometers. But not only the distance, now it is a height of I think almost 600 meters. So pumping, they required huge pumps to pump water from there. It is still continuing. And of course, no groundwater, you might know, it was earlier available at 150, 200 feet. Now it went to 2000 feet in certain areas, in Malapur or many other places. It is 1200 to 2000 feet from where water is pumped up. So you can see the shift from the nearest source to the longer. Now the latest addition to this is the Godavari water, so which comes from 200 kilometers, Ellampalli Reservoir. So we are gradually going. So next, what it is, that should be on your mind. Can you change the slide? So these were the previous sources: tanks, lakes, kuntas, and Hussain Sagar. Most of you may not know Hussain Sagar was a drinking water reservoir, and Musi River, of course, and then open wells. There were a lot of open wells all over Hyderabad, long back, 100 kilometers, 100 years back. Next. So now we are getting water from Pranahita, and what next? Pranahita actually originates in Chhattisgarh and flows through Madhya Pradesh, parts of Telangana, parts of Andhra Pradesh, and joins Godavari. So it's a tributary of Godavari. And if that is dried up, you go to Ganga, and Ganga is also getting reduced. So what else? So this is a major. So we are continuously shifting our source, and we are confident that we will get water to a growing population in Hyderabad. So this is where we need to look at urban planning. Do you want this to continue, and do you have solutions beyond a point and beyond a limit? Are there limits to growth of Hyderabad? Next. So you can see the water requirement. This is actually based on 2012 estimates done as part of Master Plan 2012. So the growing requirement is not just you are not looking at average requirement. It is the exponential requirement. So why I'm saying this is, if you are saying now we have 10 lakhs population, and tomorrow it will be 5 lakhs population, 15 lakhs. So you average it out and say multiply it for another 5 lakhs. That's not the case. With 5 lakhs addition, I think the water requirement jumps up exponentially for the entire 15 lakh population. Next. So this is again, you can see the population. That's where I mentioned exponential. So population is a line you can see at the lower level, and the water requirement jumping a number of times that. So you are not seeing a straight line. There is no straight line equation. You can just say A plus and A into 0.3% equals to some kind of thing. So if you the more the population, the water requirement jumps multiple times. Next. Next, please. So here you can see this is again a master plan estimation. The 2031 should indicate a master plan because Hyderabad master plan, which was approved in 2012, it goes up to 2031. So you can see how the average per capita availability is increasing and how much water we require. 2011, it is 1612 MLD. And then by 2031, we require 3 times more. Next. Now, do we blame only the population for this? I think that's another question which should be on our mind. If you look at again the three-step indicators. So 2011, the population was 77 lakhs, and by 2031, it is expected to go up to 2 crores. But I think it is an underestimation because the way things are going, we may reach 2 crores within next 5 years. So we are always short of water supply. Next. Sorry, just come back a little. You can see that photo. This is actually from Bangalore. The space issue. So that auto driver has constructed a home for himself in that small space, and you can see the design. So housing is another issue, of course, but that's not part of our presentation now. Next. Next. Okay. So this is different areas of Hyderabad. You know, the growth, if you look at the whole MCH, Municipal Corporation area, and then because we have, I think, 6-7 master plans in Hyderabad. So these figures reflect different areas and how the population is increasing in each of these areas. So the old Municipal Corporation of Hyderabad is on the extreme left. Then you have a rest of Huda. Huda is earlier, it was, the pre-2012 master plan. Then you have Hyderabad Airport Development Authority, HADA. Then Cyberabad Development Authority. And then you have HMDA. So that is now almost a 150 kilometer radius area. So it goes up to Sangareddy, Bhuvanagar, and so the bigger area. I think now it is almost 7,200 odd square kilometers. So each of these areas are growing intensively, but you can clearly see, it's not expansive, but it is more intensive. So MCH and the rest of Huda, they are growing more than the suburb areas. That means the growth is going to be much more intensive. That means when you are planning your water supply, if you lay one diameter, X diameter pipeline, tomorrow you might need to change it again and again, depending on the population growth within the same area. So you might know old city or some of the areas where X number of population was there, and 10 years there, it might become apartments and then a cluster of apartments. So the same area where only 4-member family could live, now it could be 40 families living in the same area. So that kind of intensification is happening. I'll come to this point later. Next. So this linkage between land use and then the water for review and then how it becomes a laissez-faire. That means manmani, everyone will do whatever they want to do. So that kind of scenario we have arrived at. So because of land use planning and lack of land use planning, lack of zonal system. You can see there's no separation, there's no planning for roads, there's no planning for construction. HMDA plan, if you look at the recent 2012 zonal plan, they don't plan for water, infrastructure at all. I don't think they mention the growth of need, but they are not planned the water requirement. One problem is, you look at water reservoirs. We are now constructing overhead reservoirs, but Hyderabad has a different terrain, so they used to construct reservoirs on the top of hillocks. So within Hyderabad, you can see reservoirs on the hillocks. So these reservoirs, which used to supply X number of people, there again population growth is there. So the cycles of filling and distributing has increased per day. So the reservoir earlier it was doing one. Now I think on a day basis it could be, depending on the need, it could go over to 5 to 6 to 7 cycles. That means we are not able to get space for additional water reservoirs, even though the water, population is growing in that area. So that is again an issue with the planning. So ultimately what happens is, one is, of course, you are looking at encroachment of water bodies like tanks, nalas. So that's how flooding is happening every year in all the cities, not only Hyderabad. Then increasingly, because government can't supply water, they facilitates privatization. So ultimately, people who can't pay, who can't afford to pay, they suffer from lack of water. And of course, the cascading effect on their health, and then the disease pattern, unhygienic condition, all this come out of such lack of access to water. Next. Next, please. So coming to water usage, I think you might be aware of this. The water usage depends on the time. Time when it peaks early in the morning, and it reduces over a period of the time. And of course, the lifestyle. So the more the apartment culture, the more water usage. You can look at studies which are available. So everywhere you can see water intensive usage is more in apartments, and then rich neighborhoods. And then the cost or expenditure. So the more the cost, then the somehow usage will be less. But if it is subsidized, and if people have more money, I think they are going to use water like anything. So one criticism is the public water, which is supplied for Metro Water Board, is used mostly for car washing in the rich neighborhoods like Jubilee Hills or Banjara Hills, even Madhapur, because they don't drink it. They have their own RO system, they have their own supply system, but this water they use it only for cleaning. So drinkable, treated, and value added water goes to washing only cars, while on the other hand, you will find many households not getting that kind of quality water. Next. So this is a situation where if you destroy urban water bodies, you are looking at floods, watersheds. Urban area is also having watersheds. I think that is uh, there in the theoretically, but practically it's not followed. So when you are designing your roads, when you are designing your residential areas or commercial areas, these urban watersheds, which means secondary streams, primary streams. I think all those need to be planned, but usually it's not done. So the result is these kind of scenarios whenever there is rain. So uh, that's one thing. The second is, that water, which should be a resource for drinking, is already polluted because of the pollution on the roads, because of dust pollution, because of vehicular pollution. Every drop of water which falls in urban area in a city becomes contaminated as soon as it touches the ground. I think that's another problem where most of the urban water is not usable directly, unlike other places where you can drink rainwater directly. Next. So this destruction of water resources, then impervious cement structures. So we are not allowing, again, the urban floods are not only because we don't have a surface to sink. So natural soil allows that sinking of water. But these impervious cement structures also speed up the water flow. So within minutes of rainfall, you can see floods downstream. So these together and the intensive water use again creates water, sewerage water, more sewerage water, and that is also going to cause problems in terms of management. So ultimately, we are looking at a iniquitous water supply in Hyderabad. Next. So the basic reason, as I mentioned, is one, whatever water nature gives to Hyderabad, we pollute every drop of it and make it unusable. Sorry. Okay. And second is you can see the misuse of technology. So, from open wells long back, 100 years back, now with pumping pumps available, piping technology available, we are intensively drawing water without looking at the balance which is required. So people are not only drawing water from groundwater resources, but also they suck water from public water supply lines as well. So this misuse of technology is also seen. And of course, lack of awareness about the entire water supply issues and how their own behavior is going to cause such problems. Negligence is there, and then the public resources are used for private purposes. Next. So currently, what is happening is, Hyderabad, until Godavari supply came, there was some 340 million gallons per day of supply. Even though the requirement per day is almost 700 gallons per day. Now they are saying it's 1200 gallons per day. So, but Metro Water Works, the public supply is only 340, and with Godavari another 80 MLD, million gallons MGL has added. So around roughly 400 to 420 million MGD of water is available. But the requirement is 1200 MGD, which means 800 MGD is coming from groundwater, and this 400 MGD, 420 MGD is being distributed unevenly. So that means many households are not getting water for that, and that unevenness can be seen in the sanitation problem. So if you want, any of you can go to sewerage treatment plants. One is near Khairtabad now. The other is at downstream of Nagore. There are actually 18 to 25 sewerage treatment plants, but only few are working. Near Khairtabad, you can go and check and see that most of the sewerage is not a raw water, but it is raw human waste. So that means
Hello. Excuse me, sir. Hello. Uh, um,
I'm sorry, I think technology issues.
no issues, sir. No problem.
So huge dependence on groundwater we can see, and that groundwater levels again are going down differentially. The other problem is Hyderabad has a lot of rock underneath because of a Deccan plateau. The groundwater seepage requires more time. So it's not that unlike in Delhi, where the soil is very porous and very soft. There, if you there is a rain and the water can sink directly into the groundwater reservoirs or aquifers. But here, because of the impervious layer, it takes lot of time. So that means you have to stop the water for longer time. So across Hyderabad, except Hyderabad, this is by NGRI, National Geophysical Research Institute, except Hyderabad area where the seepage is faster, every other place it takes lot of time. But then we are not allowing because through impervious layer, and then we are destroying the water body. So both ways, the ground and then withdrawing every hour we are withdrawing a lot of groundwater. So the groundwater levels are continuously going down, and many places you can see there is no groundwater as well. So if you look at Secunderabad, Sanat Nagar, Balanagar, many other places, groundwater, of course, Jubilee Hills. So all these areas, there is no water, and many apartments. It's near Kondapur. I have seen a couple of apartments where every day they get water supply from 30, 40 kilometers. That means the cost of water for them is higher. They are fine because they are able to earn more income. So they are, but they are spending more on that water. But everybody can't spend. So that means they have to shift from those areas to other places where they can get good water. But then again, if it is, it has to be accessible to their workplace. So this couple of factors which determine your settlement, we determine your home making or house establishment. I think among them, water has also become a major factor. I think you know other issues like workplace nearby, transportation, affordability. All those issues are there whenever someone constructs a house. So this is another factor. So and then of course, as I said, nalas, tanks, they are now polluted. Every water body in Hyderabad is polluted. So now they are allowing uh, contamination of groundwater. So no longer you will get pure groundwater as before. So many places it is contaminated, and we have done our studies in 2012. Downstream of Hussain Sagar, many borewell pumps they have shown lead in their water samples. So lead is a dangerous, rare metal, heavy metal, and it will cause a lot of health issues to someone who is consuming them, and probably impact on the future generation. So if a woman drinks more of lead and water, that impact can be seen on the child that she is going to bear. So I think these are the issues which we have to think again. Next. So what we are seeing is there is a scarcity, and scarcity because of mismanagement of water. Yet the demand is increasing, continuously increasing. So with scarcity, again demand increases. Then demand also is dependent on needs and wants. Many people are looking at wants rather than needs. And then because of these needs, again pollution. So it has become a cycle of pollution creating scarcity, scarcity leading to demand, and demand looking for needs. So this cycle, I think, has to be broken by your planning. Urban planning becomes important in breaking this cycle. Next. So this is another cycle which we are looking at where cost becomes essential, and then technology. So these are the resources which are required to bring water for average household in Hyderabad. So you require finances. So currently, Metro Water Works board is taking a lot of loans. So they are taken from World Bank, they are taking from HUDCO, they are taking loans from commercial banks. So that means your cost of water is going to increase, and who will pay for that is another issue. And secondly, human resources. Increasingly with the challenges of pollution, challenges of expanding water network, I think human resources are needed. But then you require experience, you require research, you require knowledge. So all that is another issue which is coming up. And then land. I think most people think water does not require land because it's only a pipeline. But water reservoirs require land. Water treatment reservoirs require land. You can go to on the Karimnagar Road. You can see this current water treatment plant before Citipet. It is 200 hectares of land. So huge land is required for water supply networks. And of course electricity, because now We are all dependent on pumping here, there, everywhere. I think electricity is a critical input in water. And of course, rainwater. Ultimately, all your water source is rainwater. So unless there are rains, I think you will not get water. So these are all the again factors which you have to integrate into your urban planning. Next. So who is responsible for what? So if you can look at master plan, currently it is Hyderabad Metropolitan Development Authority. But then this development authority is reduced to, collecting fees and doing nothing on water. So they only give permission, building permissions, collect some revenue out of it, and then they do nothing. So even though they prepare master plan, that master plan is always changed or violated or encroached. So master plan implementation is completely zero. And then HMDA within the master plan, as I said earlier, their plan does not include water. So they are not looking at how to make a sustainability a factor in master plan. And in Hyderabad, you have this specialized water agency, Hyderabad Metro Water Works and Sewerage Board. I think this Water Supply and Sewerage Board. This board was established in 1989 under World Bank project, because World Bank insisted that water until then was part of Municipal Corporation of Hyderabad, and because of politicization, they are not taking decisions. So World Bank said you have to establish a separate agency. Only then we can give you a loan. So this was established in 1989, and then they thought they'll do pricing a major issue, because pricing of water keeps changing depending on the investments, and as the expenditure and income keeps dynamically changing. But then they thought they'll do revision of prices every 2 years, and this specialized agency will avoid political politicization, because most politicians would not increase the prices because they want to get elected. But then it has failed. If you look at the last 30 years of Metro Water Board experience, and in the last 6 years after Telangana has formed, water tariffs have not been changed. And then on the other hand, there are very rich neighborhoods who do not pay water bills. So there is a huge list of backlogs, and they don't have courage to go and collect those water bills, and then they don't want to increase the water tariff. So where is the money coming from? And for future investment, or even for operations and maintenance. So this has become a major issue. So you have institutional issue, then you have financial issue, you have decision making issue, and then the ultimately access issue. State government, Hyderabad is again surrounded by districts, so there are district collectors. So though Hyderabad has a GHMC, there are surrounding areas which fall in districts. So there is no coordination, even though state government is responsible for those district management. So and then the GHMC, they do not have any mandate with regard to water or sewerage. Both water and sewerage are part of the mandate of Metro Water Works Board, which was established as under an act, separate act. So GHMC has no role at all, which again looks very confusing, and coordination issues are there. Next. Yeah, can you expand the window? I think someone is raising that because it's very small. presentation window.
Yes, sir.
So again and again, finances. This is again an estimation which was collated from different reports. For Hyderabad, the entire urban infrastructure, the estimation was 43,386 crores. But then at that time, they could raise only 1,806 crores. And among this, only water and infrastructure requires 13,720 crores. But the availability was only 995 crores. So where is the money going to come from? I think that's a major issue. Next. So you could not increase the window?
I think we just need to pin the screen, sir. If you're able to pin, it should be okay.
You have to do
I,
what?
if you just pin the screen to your thing, sir. I'll just ask the technical staff to look into it. Just a
This is
second.
being shared by you, no?
This is you shared by the technical staff, sir. I'll just ask them. 1 second.
You can see, I'll continue meanwhile.
Yes.
You can see the gap between revenue and expenditure clearly. Revenue, which should be coming from bill payments and then taxes, is low, and then the expenditure is increasing. So that means capital investment to expand the network, maintenance, and then whenever there is disaster, or there is any accident, so the pipeline bursts are there. So all this requires expenditure. So there is a mismatch. Every month, the electricity bill of Metro Water Works Water Board is 50 crores only on electricity. So you can imagine how much pumping they are doing, and in revenue is less than the bill of electricity. So they are getting around some 40 crores. So there is always this mismatch between revenue and expenditure. So when you are talking of access, I think this becomes a major issue. How to fill this gap, because you can't continue to depend on state government to give the funds. So I think this is not yet resolved. It continues, and then the gap is continuously increasing. Next. So here you can see these are the departments which deal with water and wastewater. So this should be Telangana Pollution Control Board, not APPCB. So Telangana Pollution Control Board, which is supposed to control water pollution under Water Pollution and Prevention Act, they are responsible for preventing industrial wastewater from entering the public supply system. But then then groundwater department, which again has to regulate groundwater usage, and of course irrigation department, which is looking after Musi River and watersheds, tanks, not tanks, because tanks within Hyderabad is the mandate of Metro Water Board. So revenue department, because they look at land, and then electricity department from CPDCL and state government. Among all these departments, there is absolutely no coordination. Each department has its own plans. So ultimately, you are looking at a chaotic kind of urban planning and a chaotic situation where inequity in water supply is clearly seen. Next. So now people, in Hyderabad, we are not gone through all these stages, but there is an increasing clamor for privatization, which has already happened in different way. So like bore water, groundwater, people each one drills a bore well, and because they have funds, they can take away water. But then you can see the inequity here. So you have a single home beside the apartment. So imagine the apartment, borewell becoming a power bore. So they go deeper, 500 meters or 1000 meters, because they have a combined financial availability. But a single home on the periphery or on a neighboring home, they might don't have money, and they might drill only 500, 100 feet, 200 feet borewell. So the groundwater, which is everyone's resource, is taken away by only few people because they have money, so they can invest in borewells and they can suck out water even before the neighbor who does not have access. So that's how the settlement is also changes. So many small homes or people who can't afford to buy apartment, they see that they don't get groundwater, and public water supply is also not there. So usually they are forced to migrate to outskirts. So increasingly, this constant what is called in your architecture is changing. I forgot that name. Uh, so people, rich households, constantly push out poor households out of the cities. So they constantly go onto the periphery, and the space left by them is occupied by these people. So this increasingly is happening because of water as well. So you may not see that so clearly in Hyderabad, but if you go look at the outskirts, whichever village which is accessed into Hyderabad, gradually, their multi-story buildings come up. So the a hut or a small house with old house, village house, they have to leave eventually because they don't get water, because they can't get water. So eventually they sell out and then go to the outskirts so that they can live properly. So this kind of change is induced by water as well, not only because of money, because of real estate and other issues. The tanker supply, which is also because every area, does not have a pipeline network. Hyderabad Metro Water Board supplies water to poor households through tanker supply. Now these tankers have been privatized, so eventually public water is supplied by private tankers, and then of course there is corruption in that, and then leakages where the water which should go to slums or low income households, it is sold outside to hotels, it is sold outside to rich apartments and other places. Then the bottling units. Now we know we get a lot of water bottles, and water is everywhere but in the bottles. So these bottling units, they buy land near water bodies, and then they pump out groundwater and then clean that, package it in bottles and sell them. So this is also privatization of water resource in a different way. And then purification units using groundwater. So all over, if you look at Madhapur again, Himayatnagar, many other rich neighborhood areas, they have household purification units, and the gated communities have their own purification units. Apartments are also big complexes, they have their own purification unit. So again, they take groundwater. So ultimately, and then of course the storage tanks, rivers are becoming corporatized. In India, it was not done so much, but experiments have been done in Madhya Pradesh and Chennai, and in some places, but it was not successful. But outside India, you can see many of the water supply companies are private corporate companies. So water, increasingly, we are moving towards privatization. And how this privatization influences settlement, and how this settlement will again come back in terms of water access. I think those are the questions which we still have. Next. So, ma'am, you could not increase it?
Sir, it's from our side. It's increased, sir. It's a large screen. So if there is an issue, the we just need to increase it on our side, like at the individual level, sir. We just need to pin it to the screen, so it becomes large in a landscape mode. But from our side, it's on a large screen only, sir.
Yeah,
Because
but
there might have been some issues in the internet. That is why maybe the screen has become small. So all we have to do is click on the image. There is a pin, and we just say click on the pin. The screen becomes large, and we put the message in the chat box also.
I don't know, because some student was asking.
We've responded to that. So from our side, it is on a larger screen only. It is just that people are joining in and joining out. I think because of the weather, the internet and current is fluctuating today. So maybe if you're joining in back again, it's become small. I'm just guessing. That's the thing.
I think that's a limitation of the Google Meet. If you have again that, June, we have a better.
Uh, yes,
Anyway,
sir.
I can't. I'm unable to increase it. But
No,
fine.
sir. It's from the user end and the individual end. So from our side, it's perfectly fine, sir.
So again, here we are looking at four kinds of categorization of water usage. One is domestic, commercial, industrial, and institutional. So each one has a issue. So what I'm suggesting is cities should have a water policy, and they can prioritize. If you look at other places, in California, if there is a scarcity, they'll ban water law, using public water for greening their lawns. That is during drought and extreme water scarcity times. In India, we never do, and sometimes we have implementation issues. So this categorization of domestic, commercial, industrial, and institutional usage, I think that needs to be done, but it is not done. So now, and increasingly, if you look at how water pipelines are laid and how connections are given to those trunk lines, I think this is a major challenge in categorization. But eventually, we need to do that. Otherwise, we will not be able to respond to equity, justice, and universal access. Uh, Next, please. So this is where I'm saying we need a city-based water policy. Every city should have a water policy so that you can decide the priority, we can decide what are the issues, challenges, and try to address them. Then we need a legal framework. I think legal framework for groundwater is being contemplated at a national level for long, but still it has not yet come. But there is a draft which was put out for comments last year. We made some comments, but groundwater regulation is a big issue which has been flagged earlier as well. And then department coordination, of course, as I said, we need to do that because uh, GHMC, HMDA, and Metro Water Works, they never coordinate with each other. So usually we look at it in a different way. Like road is laid, a beautiful road is laid by the GHMC, and next day Metro Water Works board will start digging it because they say their pipeline has a problem. So this is the that way. But the other way is those pipelines are there, but GHMC does not bother on giving space to those pipelines. Where is the space for pipelines and road network in Hyderabad? I think that's a crucial issue and also a planning issue. So as you go to low income household areas, they have absolutely no space for water pipelines. So in fact, you might know public health engineering has norms for a distance between a pipeline and a sewerage pipeline. So drinking water pipeline should be on one side and sewerage pipeline should be on the other side with a prescribed distance between them. But many places in Hyderabad, that distance has been lost, and in some places you can see water pipeline going through sewerage pipeline, which is very horrible because when the water is not supplied 24 hours, when the water is not there in the pipe, there is vacuum, so that pipe sucks whatever water is outside available. So if it is sewerage nearby, so sewerage enters the drinking water pipeline and contaminates it. So that's how many places people are getting diseases, and sometimes they die as well. So this happened in Bolapur in 2008-9, and it happened in Medipatnam, Salim Nagar, many other places. People die because of contamination of drinking water because of these issues. And ultimately, public participation is very, very important in all the decision making. Metro Water Board is a corporate board, so there is no public participation. No one knows how it is working, so it is opaque for anyone, including people like us. So public participation is very crucial, and that is possible through area sabhas, which are constitution. Indian constitution mandates that area sabhas like gram panchayats have to be established in each urban area, and these area sabhas can in turn help in public participation in managing the water. Next. So water policy critical areas, you can see we are talking of rainwater harvesting, which is very, very important because you cannot pollute the water which is given to you by nature and try to get water from elsewhere 200 kilometers away from you, because you are taking someone else's water. So rainwater harvesting is required, and we need to plan our urban spaces, even zonal systems, so that the rainwater harvesting is not reduced to only water pits. So we currently do digging of pits on the roadside, and that eventually gets filled up. We need a proper rainwater harvesting plan when the urban planning is done. I think that's very crucial. Tanks, whatever tanks and low-lying areas, lakes, puntas, I think these need to be protected, because once you protect them, you need not invest on further creation of such bodies. And then groundwater conservation, which is very, very important, because once you lose that groundwater, once your water becomes contaminated, I think groundwater contamination can be a serious issue, because you can't reverse that contamination. Unlike surface water, which you can probably treat and then reuse, groundwater, once it becomes contaminated, it becomes extremely difficult to decontaminate it. So you should prevent pollution, and you should talk of water conservation, because in many places, many households, water is wasted. Almost of 30, 40, 50% of water is wasted. I've seen in some apartments where they directly connect their inlet pipeline, public water inlet, to toilets, so that water continuously flows. I think this is a serious problem in many places. And then we have to, I think increasingly, we are looking at a reuse and recycling. Because even if you get water, if you have access to water from Godavari, the cost which is increasing, I think by recycling and reusing the cost will be much lesser. So in terms of cost, in terms of sustainability, I think we have to design apartments with twin pipelines or three pipelines. So your kitchen waste, kitchen water, and then utensil washing, I think it can go after a minimal treatment, it can go to toilets. And then other usages which are non-contaminated, they can be recycled. In fact, Singapore is now 30-40%. They are reusing water from the sewerage. So because they are they are a small country, they have been importing water from other countries, and which has become expensive. So they are reusing and they are drinking water which is treated from sewerage. I think eventually we have to do that, and I think in that direction we are moving to avoid that. Either you do rainwater harvesting, very good rainwater harvesting, and treatment. Next. So city policy is required widespread awareness, and then I am suggesting is we need annual water report tabled in the legislature. Right now, no one has any idea of how much water is there, where it is available, what are the issues and challenges. So we need a legislature, Telangana State Assembly or Telangana Legislative Council to discuss them so that policies can emerge out of it. So there should be an annual water report, like annual budget presented in the legislature. Every year, budget, financial budget is presented and planned, and they discussed and finalized. So I think now we have reached a stage where we require water is also critical. So water needs to be discussed as such. Next. So water management plan for area Sabha, it's a song. Area Sabha is a sub divisional area within urban city, and that is again constitutionally mandated area Sabha. There people can participate. So local youth and local civil society association, women groups, I think they can all participate in water planning in their area, and they can start demanding the solutions which are required for the problems in their area. And then I think one option is a declaration of water emergency. We usually don't have that process during emergency, when peak summer, when water scarcity is there. Many households they go without water, and they are forced to migrate. I think in these conditions we need to declare water emergency, so that whatever water is available, that has to be distributed equally and everyone can share it. Next, please. Limit to Hyderabad city expansion. I think this, as a students of planning, I think you should seriously discuss. Every city should have a limit. It can't expand just like that. And those limits can be defined, what kind of limits we are looking at. We have to look at a regional and decentralized development. So for Hyderabad, we have been saying, before Telangana came, we said Hyderabad can have transport access, if you have a dedicated train track with Mahbub Nagar, Nalgonda, Warangal, Nizamabad, it is already there. You need to have a dedicated track which can transport people at a cheaper rate than the trains. So people will not come and settle in Hyderabad. That means the need to invest on water infrastructure is decreased. So that kind of regional and decentralized development is required. Watershed area, as I said, we need to recognize urban watershed, and also we need to look at the watersheds for River Musi and each of the water bodies which we have been discussing, so that those watersheds are prepared for not polluting and enabling groundwater conservation and other issues. So, for rainwater conservation, we discussed water pollution. Next, please. So, this is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, I think we can go.
Thank you so much, sir. We do have a few questions on in the chat box from the participants. On behalf of the participants, I will be asking you the questions, sir. So can we go ahead with that?
Sure.
All right, sir. The first question is, sir, legally, is there any norms for drilling bore wells? Any government body to complain to take action against them without revealing the identity of the person who complains, as this is a biggest borewell mafia that we have around. We find borewells every 500 meters or less, which is really bad. So is there anything that at a micro level
Um,
we can do?
we have a Water and Trees Act, which is regulated by the MRO and Revenue Department. So whenever there is a bore drilling happens, they have to take permission from them, and this becomes intensive when that area has been declared a dark zone. So again, groundwater department, they monitor groundwater levels, and depending on the availability of the levels, I think they declare dark zones. That means in that area, groundwater withdrawal is completely banned. So you can complain using that Water and Trees Act to the local MRO or RDO. And as far as invisibility is concerned, I think that's a concern because that's not inbuilt into the act. And of course, now we are talking of Whistleblowers Act at the national level, which can help in concealing the complainant, because most of these are mafias, water mafia, sand mafia, and they
Yes,
can
sir.
threaten the individual complainant, and can be a violent outcome sometimes. In that case, I think you need to better bring community participation into that by increasing awareness in that area about the groundwater, so that this the whatever issue you're dealing with can be solved. So, but that act is there, but we need to act about that act.
Okay. So there's another question continuing with this. At the same time, are there any norms for depth which we can go for a bore well, like so many 100 meters or what it is, or is it upon region wise, or is there anything that
No
there's some?
depth, there is no norm on that, except
Oh,
this act which I mentioned. They talk about spacing between the borewells,
okay,
but not the depth, to my knowledge.
okay,
So
sir.
if you can't have a, there is a minimum space defined under that act. So, but then that can also work against the poor people or disempowered, because a big landlord or a big apartment can be there before you, and they'll drill a big borewell, and
Yes,
you build a small house beside them, and you will not be allowed to drill a borewell. So it works both ways, but I think, but still there is a norm for space between the borewells, but not sure about the depth.
okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. We'll come to our next question. Um, are there any bylaws, sir, on reuse of reclaimed and recycled water? Kindly advise us on its source, if it is.
There are no bylaws, and actually we don't have water quality standards across India.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's fine.
So that's another issue which we are dealing with. Though now Food Safety Standards Authority of India (FSSAI) that tries to come into this area through drinking water, because drinking water is also part of food. So they are trying to build, but still we are far away from many other countries in terms of defining the water quality standard.
Okay, sir. So the next question is, sir, whenever we have rains in Hyderabad, we have water logging, and at times we also see life loss. Can you suggest why these issues cannot be solved by the government? I mean, is it really not possible, or what is it?
As I said, actually, Hyderabad long back had good stormwater drainage.
Yes, sir.
So, in fact, Hyderabad is an undulating terrain. So, you have hillocks, you have high places, low-lying places. So, inevitability of water flooding is there. But they planned stormwater drainage long back, and it was a
Mhm.
very good stormwater drainage. So, nowhere in Hyderabad there used to be water stagnation. But then, in the last 30 years, because of haphazard construction and illegal encroachments, all those things, I think many of these water flows have been diverted, controlled. All those issues have come up, because of which this flooding is happening. Now, even now, I think government can plan faster evacuation of water, but then it requires resources, and that government is not ready to invest. As I said, Metro Water Works has a mandate with regard to all water, drinking water, storm water, sewerage water, all water is dealt with by the Metro Water Works board, and they are spending more money on water supply and
Mm-hmm.
almost zero on sewerage management and stormwater drainage. So there's no investment at all. So it can be done. Urban flooding, urban floods, I think that's a big area of discussion. In fact, 5, 6 years back, there was a big workshop here in Hyderabad where IIT Bombay experts have come. There was discussion on what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And quite earlier, there was a committee which was appointed to look into sewerage plan of Hyderabad. They are given almost 300-page document, but again there was no implementation, or in fact there was no serious focus on the recommendation given by that Kirloskar committee. So neglect is there, and only because people think it's only 30 days affair. So from 30 days we'll get this problem, and people will eventually forget about it. And whatever deaths, and then whatever loss of property, whatever losses happen, no one is bothered.
So one more question, sir. Uh, what is the measure that can be taken while developing new committees and remedy of the existing committees? Because water is used extensively. Any suggestions on that? And related to that, there is one more, sir. It says that can we increase the size of rainwater harvesting pits and all? Or do we just do them for government's sake or permission's sake? So it's related to both of them. It's about basically how do we do it?
You said earlier committee, right?
Yes, sir.
Which
Communities, sir, gated communities, the
community?
new community. What are the remedies that they can do? Like if already the gated community is developed and they use lot of water, extensive usage of water is there. Can we do something about it? Any suggestions beside rainwater harvesting pits?
Gated community is a microcosm of urban city, small city. I think you can do a lot there.
Okay.
So these three waters, you're looking at drinking water, and
Mm.
then the rainwater, and then the sewerage water. I think these they can be planned in conjunction for all these things. So you can have drinking water pipelines separate, and as I said, sewerage water separate, and within sewerage you can separate toilet water and kitchen wash water, and then even bathroom water. So because each of them have a different characteristics of contamination. So which are some are safer, some are more problematic. I think gated community can be a model. You can create a model of self-sustained water supply system. So water, whenever there is a rain, I think they can catch that rainwater in various ways. They can just directly catch, they can store it, and they can also enable seepage into the ground available in the gated communities. So these three ways they can do, and then whatever water they require, they can use it from that storage, and then they can recycle the sewerage water, as I said, by categorizing and bifurcating the pipelines. So some gated communities are doing all over India, not only in Hyderabad. So those case studies need to be built. We need to write about them. We need to look at the model, analyze them, and how they are sustaining. I think that's very, very important research area as well. Now, coming to at the city level, I think, as I said, it requires coordination between departments. That can be possible only when urban planning department comes into it, because urban space is required for both sewerage pipelines and water supply pipelines, and even for treatment as well. So now, right now, we have a law which says all apartment, I mean, a big apartment with a certain number of units, they need to recycle. They are forced to recycle their water. Not all water, there is a percentage. But then the issue is when the builder does the construction, they don't leave the space for the treatment of that water. So we need a small STP.
Okay.
And then the other issue is the pipeline network. So while constructing itself, if we can separate pipeline, I think it becomes easier to collect water depending on the source where it is coming from. So I think all these are has to be a part of the building planning and the construction, and then the architecture. So that's where we need to. Law is there, but I don't think
Yes.
architecture planning is supporting that. And then the builders, they look at how to cut the corner, so they don't enable that investment. So city requires a sewerage master plan as well.
Okay.
Right now we don't have a sewerage master plan. So yeah, of course we don't have even water master plan. So sewerage master plan is not there. And then the new development areas, okay, fine. Old city of Hyderabad, it is, we have to tinker with whatever is available. But what about the new areas? Are we working on new thinking in terms of planning and infrastructure development in new areas? I think that I can see, like Khajaguda, Gachibowli, in many other places now, new constructions are happening, and they are worse than the old part of the city. You can go to Kondapur, Madhapur, all those areas. Sewerage coverage is only 14%. 14% of the, you can see beautiful glass buildings, beautiful roads, but where is the sewerage going? Their sewerage is either going to in the septic tanks or going into a nearby lake. There is absolutely no sewerage network in those high-end areas, and that shows the neglect we are looking at.
So we just have a few more questions. Um, like we have, can we have large community rainwater harvesting pits in Hyderabad, apart from the individual ones that we have there at our homes? Like, can the government plan something like that?
No, community. Water harvesting means tanks, lakes, kuntas. These are
Yeah,
community rainwater harvesting areas.
but like in urban infrastructure, like around your footpaths, in your at your urban edges,
No, no, no.
okay.
That's what I'm saying. No, you can dig pits, but
Hmm.
pits again, no, have a limitation. So once they get filled, you
Hmm.
can't do any more. Storage. The
Okay.
other method is, you should have natural soil as much as possible, not cement pavement. Cement pavement will not allow.
Hmm.
Or if you want cement, again, there are perforated cement pavements are done. So
Hmm.
footpaths in many places are now lined with perforated tiles. So they
Hmm.
have small holes, and whenever there is rain, there is some percolation through that. So
Hmm.
there are many methods which have been suggested. Even in Hyderabad, there are NGOs which are working on that. But then
Okay.
government is needs to work on that. Uh, but community pits,
Hmm.
big pits are not safe because in urban areas the interaction with the surroundings is very high. So
Hmm.
there are cases where children have fallen into those big
Yes.
pits and they have died. So these tanks, I feel kuntas tanks which are there, I think which can be restored quickly. I
Step
think these are
wells.
the things we need to focus upon.
Yes, sir. Right. Traditionally, we had step wells and all. Right. Sir, how industries are affecting the groundwater level? Advise us on water scarcity situation due to it.
Industries like big apartments, they suck out groundwater for their needs. So wherever they are, I think they have led to water scarcity in those areas. So they don't do rainwater harvesting, even though they have a big area of land. They don't do rainwater harvesting. But even if they do, we get concerned because it could be
Pollution.
contaminated by pollution,
Yes.
industrial contaminants. In fact, in Hyderabad, many industries, instead of treating their industrial wastewater, they are pumping that wastewater directly into injection borewells and contaminating the groundwater, which is a criminal act.
Hmm.
So both ways, industries are doing a grave injustice to groundwater by pumping out large amounts per day.
Hmm.
And on the other hand, they are also contaminating the groundwater potential. So, what is the solution? Solution is we have been saying we need to plan their location. We need to insist on pollution treatment,
Hmm.
and we need to again talk about limits on the number of water-intensive industries to be established here. So in Hyderabad and surrounding areas, lot of pharma industries are there, and they are polluting. They are sucking out groundwater, polluting groundwater. So we are saying this is enough because Hyderabad is supplying two-thirds of Indian medicine exports. So we are exporting medicine, making money, but we are polluting our water. I think we need to look at this angle as well.
So, coming to the last question, sir. Sir, you mentioned that there is only 50% water supply. Would just rainwater harvesting in each building take care of the needs? In old buildings, it may not be possible also to retrofit plumbing for recycle and reuse. Is there anything else that we can do?
Retrofitting, I think you are the good people to say. I mean, you
Yeah,
people are engineers.
yes.
But it is possible because it has to be because you need to work out the costs and compare it with the other costs which you are going to incur.
Hmm.
So that way, because most people hesitate to invest on retrofitting because of the cost, and then but they don't calculate the cost of avoiding that retrofitting. And secondly, rainwater harvesting, it can obviate your needs for public water supply by depending on the collection. I
Okay.
think almost 100%. So there are people who are collecting water and storing, and they are using it for 365 days. So it all depends on the collection potential and the storage systems you have. And it is possible that you may not depend on groundwater and public water supply. Uh, so yeah, it depends on your capacity and the efficiency of the collection.
Of the collection
Enough
process.
water, this season, this year, we are getting good rains in Hyderabad. And August, we get a lot of rain. I think you have enough water for your annual needs, not even per day needs.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir. We would like to thank Dr. D. Narasimha Reddy Garu for his kind words of wisdom. It was an excellent session giving us an awareness on accessibility to water in conjunction with urban planning. The session gave one second. The session gave us an insight of the various facts revolving around water conservation faced at the environmental level. The presentation had very illustrative, detailed, and analytical statistics at ground level in context with Hyderabad. We thank you so much, sir, for sharing the ground reality around construction and around urban planning also. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this.
Our pleasure and honor, sir. Thank you. I think Rajyoti sir would like to speak.
Narasimha Reddy garu, thank you very much for accepting our invitation, very short notice, and it is a pleasure, sharing your ideas with architects, and how architects are enjoyed, and looking forward to work with you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all participants. We will be having our next session at 12 in the afternoon. The session is by Dr. D. B. Venkateshwara Rao on water management in sustainable development and planning.